Hey everybody, thanks for joining us today. I'm joined with Joseph from Bright Cellars. Hey Joseph. Joseph, if you wouldn't mind, if you could kind of give a little background on yourself and Bright Cellars for those of us at home.
Yeah, so I'm the CTO and one of the co-founders of Bright Cellars. We're an online wine subscription, a data-driven wine club. Our mission is to inspire and educate a new generation of wine lovers by delivering a transformative, personalized wine experience. So we do that. We've been in business for over 6 years now. We started in Boston. Me and my co-founder Richard. We went to school at MIT together. We went worked at another startup, each two different companies separately, and then we're working on decided to work on this full time. And then we moved out here to Wisconsin, initially Madison to do generator for 3 months, and then we ended up settling down in Milwaukee. So we've been here about 5 years. I'm doing really well. We're still going. We're going strong right now. Yeah, it's going great.
Excellent. And so, Joseph, if you wouldn't mind, if you could share a little bit, because it's not often that we get a chance to talk to a much younger company as it's growing up through that life cycle, and specifically in Wisconsin. If you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit around that.
Yeah. So being a younger company in Wisconsin, Milwaukee, um, it's a challenge. I think it's a challenge being a younger company anywhere. You're trying to discover and figure out how to get from 0 to 1, or get off the ground really. So even in Boston, where people would think that's a much better place to build a company, you still feel pretty isolated. You still feel like an underdog, and that's not changed. When you move to Milwaukee, one bit, it's pretty similar. I actually feel a lot more support. I think Milwaukee in particular is pretty supportive of small businesses. Wisconsin is definitely supportive of small businesses. A lot of local support, and really you just feel like a connection to the city, where Milwaukee's trying to, in a sort of ways, be a start of itself and trying to get to the next level and to innovate um, as well. So we've seen we've really enjoyed being a part of that evolution, with part of Generator, a lot of the startups in the area. Ward 4, we're based out of. It's really been a fascinating experience, and I think it fits well with being a startup, even though it might be a little unintuitive and not exactly what everyone thinks of when you're thinking of building a startup.
So I'm just curious, Joseph, if you could think of like some of the biggest challenges that you have faced, what kind of like the top one that you faced in the growth of Bright Sellers?
Yeah, I think for us, it's been it's a recent problem, but just trying to expand the product. We had really good initial product market fit, and now we're trying to take it to the next level. And that for us has been a challenge. I think we're doing a great job. We've improved the product experience over the last few years, last year in particular. But that has definitely been one of the challenges, is building a team around that and to expand on that. I think that's partially also because of the background of me and Richard. I'm more technical. He's more business, finance, entrepreneurial, and while we are good at the product, or we have a very specific idea for that, bringing more people in to scale that and build a team around that has been a challenge that we're really excited to try to solve.
Excellent, excellent. So one of the questions I have for you, thinking about your business and kind of the kind of for you peel back and look back at like some of the technology that's behind the scenes. If you wouldn't mind, can you share with us kind of what you're using? What are some of the major platforms?
Yeah, so for the e-commerce site, we use PHP, typical, pretty typical LAMP stack. That means Linux, Apache. Well, we actually use Nginx on top of um, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. So that's pretty straightforward, pretty typical. PHP, not the coolest language these days, but for an e-commerce site, it gets the job done really quickly and efficiently. So, and we've seen PHP, really make strides recently. In terms of infrastructure, we use AWS. We've used it since day one. It just gets the job done really well. We host our server through EC2. We use RDS for the database, and then that's the core e-commerce side. We've been building out this data platform side, and that as well uses a lot of Amazon services. We use a Redshift database. We use Kubernetes for part of that, and we're just playing around with all of the new offerings that AWS has as well. There's so many, and they're coming in fast, new ones, and not to go into detail on any too many of them, but it's been a really exciting experience seeing AWS really scale up and provide, I mean, really the stuff that we need. That we don't want to rewrite things that are pretty much solve problems, and AWS providing that for us to just kind of tap into has been a godsend.
That's excellent. So I'm just curious, why, as a CTO, why did you make that decision to go with AWS, especially as you're looking at, you have a mountain of things you got to deal with as a startup. So why'd you pick AWS?
Yeah. As I mentioned, product has been one of our big focuses, and then we want to differentiate ourselves on product as well as data platform. With that, we're not trying to innovate on the lower level details really, and AWS is what we consider best in class. It's been around, it's been really reliable, and it kind of just provides everything we need. Also, I used it in my last company, so I was familiar with it. But like I said, I think it's known as being the top leader in cloud services. So really, we just didn't want to take a gamble, and we knew it, and the rest is history.
That makes a lot of sense. Joseph, I really appreciate you sharing that story with us. I do have one last question for you, if you don't mind here. So if you're thinking about kind of the next steps for the company, you had mentioned you're building out a data platform. If you wouldn't mind sharing with individuals at home, kind of what are the challenges that you've seen in that particular space?
Yeah, there's a lot. Really just one of the biggest, I would say, is it's such a new, fast growing space. Staying on top of everything and just trying to figure out what's what and what you need and what you don't need, and allocating resources to the right things, just figuring out all of the different areas that you can go in has been quite the learning curve. There's so many things you can do: AI, machine learning, big data, all these words flying at you. It can be daunting at times, and I think focusing on it down into what are you actually trying to solve? What is the business problem? And actually just getting at, not focusing on the buzzwords too much, but just figuring out the business problem, starting small, and then scaling up has been that's the key to it, and that's what we're trying to do.
Excellent. But Joseph, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Chip.